Just finished an incredible lesson. You're really happy with how you and the horse are going, and you really can't wait to get back into it over the next couple of weeks and see how all this training is progressing. So then what is the one thing that you should probably really get into the habit of doing that will keep that progression from your last lesson into the next couple of weeks of training, that you are left to your own devices and to your own strategies and your own decision making about progressing you and the horse going forward? One of the most important things to get into the habit of doing is journaling. And the reason for that is often the lessons that you learnt and the frameworks that are developed through a lesson and the winning strategies you've got can be difficult sometimes to replicate by yourself because you haven't understood exactly what was required in that lesson to get yourself there. The scaffolding that was involved, the chaining of events, the recognition of problems being overcome, and the strategies to put all that together. And that's obviously the experience of the coach. However, to keep that progression going, we've got to remember how those links came together. And the best way to do that is through journaling. So once you get home, then we want to make sure we write down a couple of important things. And the first things to do is, what were the things that went well? What were the things that we did well through the lesson? In other words, 2 or 3 things that we're really pleased with, we're really happy with how the things are coming together, and also, what we want to be able to maintain. Now, sometimes it's hard to find, if we've got a negative personality or have been in through a difficult period, what are the positives? And it's a really good habit to actually start to learn how to have that positive reinforcing thoughts that reach in and understanding the training you're doing. And sometimes it's just the fact of showing up. Like, you actually write that down, that I was grateful that I showed up. I was grateful that I was able to cope with certain situations. I was grateful that I was able to be present in certain situations. And there is a really good thing for being able to stay present. There's nothing wrong with, if that's the only thing that you can think of, that's actually still a really good habit and a really good foundational skill. So writing down 2 or 3 things that you're quite pleased with, either you and the horse have done well. And then also the next thing to write down is, what's the one thing I want to think of that I want to just keep improving on? What's the big takeaway that I want to make sure that I keep nailing down, I keep perspective on? And often as a rider, we can get sidetracked because we're not only dealing with our own thoughts and our own capacity, but also our horse. And we can obviously get sidetracked sometimes on what's the important thing. So writing down, what's the 1% of thing I want to improve and to make sure I stay on track. Now, the other really important thing to write down, and this is so important, is I remember what the end result was, but what was the scaffolding that held this all together? Like, what did my instructor run through with me to get me to that point? All too often we're pleased with the result, pleased with the outcome, but we can't necessarily remember all the steps that were involved in getting us there. And those steps might have been very small. They might have been almost counterintuitive to what we think our instincts want to tell us. So often when we've got control issues, we don't want to go forward. We don't want to ignite the engine. We don't want to make sure that they're powerful. And yet I'm reminding myself that I've got to not trust my own instincts. I've got to let myself go into that power. I've got to let myself get okay with the extra adrenaline, the extra feeling of power, and that I'm not losing control by doing that, because what I'm going to get out of it enhances everything, not destroys everything. So often we've got to write down what are the scaffolding steps that made it work. And so that's really important, because then we reflect on, because often later on, in 2 or 3 days' time, our memory can start to play tricks with us, because it starts to remember, especially if we're very critical and we want to improve, we're critical of all the things we're not doing well, rather than the things that I did to make it actually work well. And this is where journaling is such a beneficial thing, because it tries to take the emotion out of it and tries to let us actually connect with the data and connect with the data that matters. So after your lesson, and especially when your instructor has reviewed, what you want to do over the next 2 or 3 weeks in the meantime, or 2 or 3 days between your next sessions and what you're working on, then it's really important to actually get that down on paper. So you're taking away that sense of emotional responses to something happening. And this allows you to really stay focused and stay present and stay on track with what you're trying to do. So one of the biggest things that you can do to help improve your riding when you're not in the saddle is actually starting to get the habit of good journaling. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit of what we also do with journaling before a lesson, and particularly before a competition, to help clear our mind. But this is more about how we talk about it afterwards. So I hope that little thought helps, and that allows you to making sure we're putting good memory habits in, and also good strategies for what we're going to do in the future with our riding, and to stay on track a little bit better. Take care, like and subscribe, leave me a comment if you've started journaling, and also sometimes what you get a block in your journaling. Like, journaling doesn't just come naturally. Journaling, like any skill, sometimes has to be worked on. So don't be feeling that journaling has to seem perfect straight away as well. It's a skill like anything else. It's a skill that you adapt to, that you learn from, and that you grow with it like anything else. So don't feel like your first attempt at journaling just seemed like a big bunch of mixed up words, or where it descends into self-doubt or what I'm not doing well. And just recognize that, and then slowly change that as well. Like, it's all data. It's all data about what we do and how we perceive our things.